myself with this. Candace Owens needs to be very careful. This is a fact. You cannot dispute the fact that the situation surrounding Charlie Kirk's death, or shooting, or assassination, as you may call it, or habit, have been very dicey, totally mysterious, and have been unexplained. So do well to stay here as we get very commentative and conversational. And please don't forget to like, share, comment, subscribe, and turn on your post notification bell. And yeah, please, I really love you to turn on the comment section and let me know what you guys think about everything we've said out here, because man, promise it to be very interesting. Very, very interesting. Now, to start with, I feel Candace Owens has really done the most when it comes to unearthing the whole mess around the Charlie Kirk shooting. And one thing I would never understand is why this situation has been left unattended to. For a start, this was freedom, the first of one of the several attempts to silence freedom, but I'm glad it did not work out the way they planned it. However, it behoves on the government to tell the people what actually happened, and I feel very sadly so that the government has not yet been very open with the people. They've not come out to tell everyone what exactly happened. And thankfully, we have someone like Candace Owens who has put it all out there, and she's doing justice to it. And I feel she needs to be very careful. And her fans also share the same sentiment, because many of them feel she's doing the Lord's work while still endangering herself. I mean, this is a woman with children and a husband, and it'll be very sad to lose someone like that. However, let me dive right into it. We're going to be talking about the whole connection, the Israeli connection, and I feel that this situation has not even been touched in the first place. Very, very saddening. Now, 1 week after Charlie Kirk's, memorial and all of that, the memorial service, almost 1 week after, actually, we've yet to see the FBI come out with some very definite information concerning Charlie Kirk's death and the real shooters. Because trust me, the person that was mentioned as the shooter, the guy that was arrested, both the decoy and then the second guy that was arrested, I don't believe, and there have been proof, and I will give you proof as we keep talking. Now, one of the facts that has been remained unanswered. Now, I have some very unanswered, first and foremost, I have some unanswered questions. Now, one of those unanswered questions first is this: why was Charlie Kirk? Now, one of the questions I want to ask, and I feel no one has even given an answer, first is this: Charlie Kirk, according to Candace Owens, refused $150 million. Now, who was that money from? And what was the intent of the bribe? This is clear. If Charlie Kirk refused it, it was because it was meant for something. And according to Candace Owens, and all of these things are still allegations if they've not been proven in the court of law. She stated that, or allegedly stated that, Charlie Kirk was given $150 million to, kind of pipe low on his comments about Israel and, speaking strongly about Israel. So the question here is this: why was he given the bribe money? Some people call it the shut up money or whatever, but the fact remains that he was given this money for a reason. What did he know that the rest of the influencers and the rest of the world, didn't know? If Charlie Kirk was not a challenge, why was he killed? I mean, no one comes out there to want to, shoot someone if you don't see him as a threat. And this is the fact. So why was he shot at? Eventually, the world, from what I'm seeing, will just gloss over the situation. No, sadly, the wife, or in my opinion, I feel Charlie Kirk is one of those people that the left didn't see coming. They didn't see him as a strong opponent until he began to, walk his way through the campuses and the universities, and all of a sudden he became a force to reckon with. So when he started speaking strongly against Israel, I feel Charlie Kirk could have, won the opinion of the young people. And this is something the Israelis, I'm just saying though, from what I can see, they didn't want them. They didn't want the young people to know about what was really happening. And of course, we can see he eventually, paid the eternal price for speaking the truth. He's someone that's seen as a martyr. However, it's going to be a very sad situation if the FBI, glosses over this or just sweeps it under the carpet, as obviously they are doing, because, you cannot trust someone like Kash Patel. The fact remains that I don't even believe that President Trump trusts Kash Patel, the FBI director. Off of what I have seen, Kash Patel is not to be trusted, and it's a very sad situation. When you put someone in that kind of position, you expect that, he complies, his, ideals, match with President Trump's ideals, but obviously we can see that this guy might just be one of those people who, have been said there, may have been put there, to subvert information, subvert justice, and it's just heartbreaking, really very heartbreaking. And one of the questions that have been left unanswered is this: how come the decoy? Now, from what I can see, the decoy, that's the first guy that was arrested, who was like, I shot him, I shot him, I shot him. I don't know if you've, maybe one of these days we'll get to play that clip and then you hear that guy. That same person was seen at the 9/11, at the site of the, or the scene rather, of the 9/11 explosion. The same guy was seen at the Boston bombing and several other situations. And he's a convict, he's an ex-convict. So the fact remains that this man in question, more so, he's not a young guy, he's not a young person. So to think that he was at a campus meeting, at a Turning Point campus meeting, the question begs to ask, what was his connection? What did he know that the rest of the world doesn't? And very, very strongly, we have also seen that he's got arrested. Now, if the FBI knew about him, and when they had information about him before now, how come he was not arrested before now? Right now, he has been put in jail for child con, someone that was left to rummage the streets and rampage, cause a lot of mayhem. I mean, he was a walking time bomb, a moving time bomb, and yet he was led to he was let free by the justice system. And once they caught him, I mean, once he announced himself as a shooter, in my opinion, obviously had nothing to do with the shooting. It was this perfect decoy, well planned, well timed, and of course set to create that confusion, the initial confusion, so that the person that actually carried out that crime, or the people and the individuals involved, will have enough time to escape. That is if it was from 200 meters away or 200 yards away. Because from what I can see, obviously it might not have been 200 yards away. And from investigations, private investigations that have taken place, it's obvious that there's a possibility or a great likelihood that the shooting did not happen from 200 yards away. It could have been something closer, obviously, or possibly someone from inside the system, someone from within Charlie Kirk's system. Now, one of the questions I feel no one has really asked, and it's really very, very disturbing, is how come the doctors, I'm talking about the people that pronounced Charlie Kirk dead, did not give a press briefing. Now, it's very traditional, or it's common for, whenever there's a killing like that of a high-profile individual or any violence of any sort, it's usually common for the medical, personnel on ground, or the person that attended to the patient, to come out to give a press briefing. But in Charlie Kirk's case, I mean, the whole world was looking at it. The whole world was, was waiting on them to give a thorough briefing. We didn't see the doctor say anything. And in my opinion, that is crazy. I've never seen something like that happen before. And before now, we expected the medical guys to come out to do the talking. But we saw, President Trump was the one people that made the announcement. And a lot of questions. There are a lot of questions. What happened to the medical personnel on ground, the people that attended to him? How come they couldn't give a press briefing? Now, there's a question I feel that no one is really asking. One of those questions that were asked was, how come there was no exit wounds from Charlie Kirk's injury? And it begs to ask, if there were no exit wounds, how come the doctors didn't still come out to talk about it? By every standard, the doctors should have come out there to talk about the exit injuries and all of that. And if that didn't happen, there was striking that really happened that has really made me ask a lot of questions. I don't know if anyone else is asking those questions, but for one, we saw the Charlie Kirk's executive producer, that is the Turning Point executive producer, come out to tell the public that that he spoke with Charlie Kirk's doctor, and the doctor announced that Charlie Kirk had strong bones, and the strong bones withstood the impact of the bullets from 200 yards away, or probably whatever the situation was. He stated very clearly that Charlie Kirk's bones withstood the impact. And it begs to ask, what happened to the Hippocratic law? We know that physicians, cannot just release confidential information pertaining to a patient unless through proper and credible sources or approved sources. Now, how come an executive producer, had the right, had the temerity to ask questions pertaining to the exit wounds from the body, and then the response was given? I mean, there's a lot of mysterious stuff here, and I really want to ask, what's really happening? Why is FBI not looking into all of this? And even if they're looking into all of this, what has been the response? Why is the world just looking on and letting these things pass by? And I'm very grateful for the type of person Candace Owens is. And although I've raised a lot of concern, for her life and the risk she's putting herself on, by talking about this thing, but the fact is still clear. What happened to Hippocratic law? How come the doctor was able to talk about it with an executive producer, not a family member, and this guy put it out there, almost speaking in lieu of the doctor? And that's a very, very questionable one. Really very questionable. Really questionable, and no one has been talking about it. And now there's another one that I want us to talk about. On the scene of the crime, or at the scene of the crime, it wasn't sealed off. A few minutes after Charlie Kirk got shot, there were no law officers on site. There were no. The CSO, that's the chief security officer, perfectly didn't talk about it, and he didn't seal off the scene of the crime. That, in my opinion, was very suspicious and still remains unanswered. How come the scene of the crime was still being, played around with? People went there, some people took pictures around the same area, and then we saw a particular man, and Candace did very well to, capture that scene where one of the Turning Point agents was losing a camera from the back camera. Some people have called the camera different things, but all I can see is that the area at the scene of the crime was not sealed up, was not cordoned off from the public. And it goes a long way to ask, what did these guys know? I'm talking about the Turning Point staff. I'm talking about individuals that worked with Charlie Kirk. I'm talking about this chief school security. I'm talking about even security officials. That's the police, the Utah police, or whatever, the Utah Police Department. And it begs to ask, what is being hidden? If this was not planned, how come the scene of a crime, such a grievous and heinous crime as, assassinating the father, the martyr of truth in this generation, how come no one is talking about the fact that it wasn't cordoned off? Cases of less weight get cordoned off very easily, and then we saw this one completely unattended to. These are questions that a lot of people need to talk about, and it's really very sad. Now, talking about something else that I feel is a very sensitive discussion. I'm talking about the day of the memorial. Sadly, we saw a lot of emotion, a lot of display of emotion. Charlie Kirk's friends, people from Turning Point, the government officials came out to talk about it and all, but we didn't get to see enough Charlie Kirk's family members. And Candace Owens has raised concerns about that. And this is one of those things I thought about long before Charlie Kirk, or long before Candace Owens talked about it. How come none of his family members came out there, to talk? I mean, they're all hot, and I know they love to be private people. When it concerns, don't forget, Charlie Kirk just has one family, but just one sister. And in the family of four, nobody came out to give a speech or to make a speech. That is really suspicious. Are they afraid? Like the question begs to ask, are they afraid of what's to come? Have they been warned? Did they know something about, threats and all of that? Because even before now, Charlie Kirk was talking about his fears, his concerns, and, how he felt that, the world was, especially the US, was bowing so much to Israel, to the Israeli pressure, and pressure from within, because most of the people that were pressuring him, according to him, were forces from within. He knew it was going to get very brutal. I mean, he literally predicted it, and he said it was to expect violence of the highest form, and that's exactly what happened to him. Too bad he saw it, and the same thing he talked about, happened to him. So the question is, what happened to the family members? Did they all decide to stay private? I mean, it's their decision to do whatever they want, but the fact still remains that if these guys were our family members, then they should have come out to say something. I'm not just talking about the family or the father or the mother, I'm talking about the sister. I mean, someone, his loved one, apart from his wife. I mean, his wife, that's the major mourner, the chief mourner, actually came out to talk, but we didn't get to see anyone else. And that, in my opinion, is very suspicious. And, there have been concerns raised as regards the presence of his family at the burial. Some people say his parents were there, others say they weren't, that they chose to mourn privately. But whatever the case is, it still remains that these people are conspicuously absent. And it begs to ask, what do they know? What do they understand? Yeah, questions need to be asked. Once again,